the non-dual understanding could be divided, could be expressed in two simple statements. The first, that happiness is the nature of our being, and second, that we share our being with everyone and everything. So this second aspect I want to emphasize in response to your question, the fact that we share our being with everyone. The common name for this recognition of our shared being is of course love. And this is one of the central tenets of the non-dual understanding in whatever tradition it is expressed. That beneath or behind the apparent multiplicity and diversity of people, animals, and things, there lies a single, unified, indivisible reality from which everyone and everything derives its apparently independent existence. And so to live this understanding means to treat everyone as one's very own self, irrespective of whether one likes them or not. It's got nothing to do with whether we like them, whether we agree with their ideas, or behind our being, or prior to our ideas, lies our being. In the same way that you could say behind the movie lies the screen. Of course, it's not really behind, but you understand what I mean by the analogy. So that the screen in this analogy would be our being, that aspect of ourselves that is prior to and independent of our experience. That is the same for everyone. All our thoughts and feelings, our subsequent activities and relationships lie, so to speak, on top of our being. So to live, or one aspect of living the non-dual understanding, is to recognize that everyone as one's own self. And not just to understand this, but to feel this. And not just to feel this, but to act in relation to everyone in a way that is consistent with this felt understanding. So that would be the first thing, to not just understand, but feel that everyone I encounter is the very same, not similar, the same being that I am. That the separation is only at the level of form or appearance. Prior to our apparently separate identities, we are the same being. We share our being. So that's the first thing, to be sure that this felt understanding informs the way I relate with everyone, whether it's a close family member, a friend, a stranger, a colleague, whoever it is, whether I agree with the person or not, whether I like the person or not, to relate to them, to allow my relationships with them to be informed by this felt understanding of our shared being. So in this approach, we are not necessarily called to like everybody, but we are called to love everybody. Whether we like somebody or not is just a matter of our conditioning, whether our minds, which of course are conditioned, are in harmony with their mind, in which case we will tend to agree and like one another. If our minds are conditioned differently, then we will disagree with them and not necessarily like them, but that's not relevant. So we don't have to like everyone, but we do have to love everyone. And then, Bill, to answer your question in relation to activities rather than relationships, the way I live this understanding is to ensure, to the best of my ability, that my activities are an expression of this understanding, and as such, bring this understanding out from my heart and mind out into the world. So that those would be two, and of course one of the ways I do this is by speaking and writing, but by no means the only way. The speaking and writing are just two of the ways in which this understanding can be expressed, and many people who have this this understanding, but don't necessarily formulate it in the terms that I use, or indeed formulate it in any terms, still express this understanding through their actions. In fact, I would suggest that any act of kindness ultimately comes from the either the intuition or the recognition that we share our being. And it is this felt sense of sharing our being that impels one to act with kindness towards another.
Yeah.
So there are many ways this understanding
Yeah.
can be expressed, and to the best of my ability, I make sure that my activities, as well as my relationships, are an expression of this understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find Rupert? Do you see Rupert uh, get upset and have to find that place of presence that pervades that personal self experience?
Rupert doesn't often get upset, but if something arises and it provokes some reaction or resistance in me, I immediately go back to my true nature. I immediately, in fact, it's no longer because I've been doing this for so long. I no longer have to walk myself back through the process. On whose behalf does this feeling, this reaction arise? It's instantaneous. But if I were to elaborate the process for you, it would be, and indeed it used to be, a process where I investigate the self on whose behalf the feeling rises, look for that, the upset or self, and of course, as you know, if we look for ourselves, we never find the separate, the temporary, finite, separate self or ego. If we go inside looking for what we call ourself, all we find is the presence of awareness. So that for so many years, I practiced this, that I no longer have to go through a pedantic, a pedagogical process. If there is any kind of reactivity in me, it is immediately, or at least very quickly, met with this understanding. I trace my way back. In fact, I don't trace my way back. I just go straight to my true nature, the reaction or the response, whatever it was, simply cannot stand in the face of the recognition of oneself as the openness of awareness.